It's time for another year-long no-buy. Hi everybody, today I am going to be talking about my 2024 no-buy year and how I'm going to structure it, the rules, etc. I am at the end of my first no-buy year in 2023, which focused on stationery, beauty, and food delivery. And I did a video earlier this month wrapping up the things that I learned from this particular no-buy year. You can check that one out, I'll link it down below. If you watch that one first, then what I'm about to talk about probably is not going to surprise you. This year I do want to do a no-buy, but I'm making it a little bit more narrow while at the same time adding in some other focuses. Let's just get into it before I ramble anymore. The reason I'm continuing my no-buy year this year is because A, while I feel really good about a lot of the habits I have developed or changed in this last year, there are still some that I would like to work on. B, I have a metric shit ton of things I need to use up and I need to get a little bit more consistent with that. And C, we're going to be doing a lot of budgeting in our personal lives this year. We have some big financial goals and things like that we want to focus on, and so budgeting is going to be a big part of that, and having a no-buy to kind of go along with that is going to be very helpful in sort of focusing on finances this year. First and foremost, the only major category I will be on a no-buy this year is the planner, stationery, art supplies category, which I know is still a very big, broad category, but like, that's my category. Planners, stationery, stickers, art supplies, all of that shit. The same category from this last year, that's the only one. We're not gonna do beauty. I'm not worried about beauty. We're not gonna do food delivery. We already talked about that in the last video. And it's not because I haven't reset my habits. I really have. I did a good job this last year with my stationery no-buy. The real issue is that I have so much shit. I have so much shit to use up. I could open up like several stores. So doing the no-buy this year just makes sense. I want to focus on using my shit up. One of the ways to not use your shit up is to bring new shit in, because that's more interesting because it's brand new. So you need to rediscover the old stuff by avoiding bringing in the new stuff. At least that's what I'm telling myself. It didn't really happen this last year. Like I said in that other video, I wound up going into a very minimal style for a good chunk of the year, and so I didn't use up as much of my stuff as I would have hoped. So this year I am going to focus on that. Rule number 1, no purchasing anything in this category unless I absolutely run out of it. If I run out of black Papermate flares, I'm not going to go buy more black Papermate flares because I have other black fine liners. If I run out of all black fine liners in like the medium tip, then I can buy some Papermate flares, but maybe I'll want to buy something else. So I have to run out of like the category, not just the particular item, which means I'll probably never buy any more black fine liners because I have so many. Rule number 2, and this is a change from last year. Planners and maybe some pens, depending on what the pens are for review, don't count towards my no-buy. I am not setting the $100 budget this year. I found, and I talked about it in this last video, there were things I wanted to review that never got reviewed because I didn't have room for it in that $100 budget. I will still set a work budget each month towards what I can buy for review, but it's gonna be based on income coming into my business rather than an arbitrary number. I am still going to hang on to once I have received it in my hands, it needs to be on the calendar and then on the channel within 2 months, and I will still hold myself accountable to that in my check-in videos. That was the big piece. Holding myself accountable to getting it up on the channel as rapidly as possible, as opposed to ordering something for review and it sits for 6 months and I forget about it. I'm not gonna hold myself to an arbitrary budget purely because that was one of the areas that became a pressure point this past year. Oh my God, am I spitting saying the word pressure point? Jesus. Rule number 3, and this is a carryover from last year, I can replace my professional art supplies if I run out, and usually I like to replace them when I'm at the very edge of running out, but not run out yet, because the worst is being in the middle of a professional project and then running out of something, having to stop what you're doing when you're in the flow to replace it. So having a little backup, or like getting my backups ahead of time, is really important. This is very specific to the specific watercolors I use. I have a professional palette that has 20, 18, 20, some amount of colors on it that I use in my professional work, and specific colors from specific brands, my brushes, which really don't need to be replaced, my specific paper that I use, which does get used up, and color pencils specifically. Those things are, and there's some solvents and things like that that don't really need to be replaced ever, but like if they do. Things that I use in that kind of work, I know how they function, and I know how they function together. As a professional artist, that is so important. So being able to replace those when they run out instead of going to something else that I have for that work is going to continue to happen. Here's the big one that's new. Rule number 4. I am going to challenge myself to use up a planner or stationery supply each month for the whole month, and I'm going to post about it. I'm going to put a post up on Patreon early. This is going to be in lieu of the lettering challenge I have been doing with my Patreon, although I may also post on Instagram some of my old lettering challenges for the fun, because I've had some people ask about them. But I'm going to be challenging myself and you to use something up. So keep your eye out for that. It'll go up on Patreon and it'll go up on Instagram every month. Patreon will get it a couple weeks early. And then I'm gonna use it up, and I will make sure to update you in my videos each month. I don't know if I'm gonna be doing solo update videos in this next month or just kind of mushing it into all of the other things I do at the end of the month. I don't know yet, but I will be updating you every month on how things are going. But you need to stay tuned on Instagram and on Patreon for the hashtag #UseYourShit2024 challenge, because that's coming starting in January. Hint, I'm gonna be using up 3 rolls of washi tape, which is a lot of washi tape to use up, but the rolls I picked they're already mostly used, so we'll go with that. Rule number 5, and this one is going to be interesting. I'm going to add an additional category each month, just to keep things fresh, just to keep reminding myself to update my habits, to continue to stay conscious of the things I'm buying and not buying. In January, my additional habit is going to be not ordering off of Amazon, because Amazon, as I said in my takeaways video, is a really rough website for me when it comes to my shopping habits. Now, there are a couple of things, and I talked about it in that video, that we need to get off of Amazon for things like dialysis and other stuff. I'm just gonna make sure before the end of the month that we're stocked up on them so that I don't need to worry about them in the month of January. But a month-long Amazon moratorium is coming in January, and throughout the rest of the year, it may be things that are specific to that month, like, you know, sweaters in October or whatnot, but it may also be an area where I've noticed that I have been overdoing it a little bit. So I will be adding on additional categories throughout the year in order to keep my no-buy fresh and not so boring. Finally, rule number 6, and I've already talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to continue to hold myself accountable in monthly recaps, whether they are within a larger video or their own video, just depending on how my schedule looks each month. Just stay tuned for that. But I'm going to add on that I will be recapping on Instagram as well in my Instagram stories, and I will save them to a highlight, because that will add a second level of accountability to my no-buy. And those are the rules for my upcoming planner, stationery, and art supply no-buy. I don't have any exceptions besides the work bit and the professional art supplies, which is also work bit. Mostly because I don't need anything. I really fucking don't need anything. I don't need anything. So let's just go with it. It's going to be interesting because I'm going to be using the Sterling Ink Common Planner next year instead of the Moxie Life, and a lot of my stickers aren't sized for it, but rather than go and buy a whole bunch of stickers that are sized for an A5 like Sterling Ink Hobonichi situation, I'm going to just make the ones I have work. I'm going to make them fucking work instead of going and buying a whole bunch of new shit that I don't need. That is going to be the focus of this year, is using my shit, #2024, not bringing in new shit. Like reducing what I have without then filling it back up again. That's the vibe we're going for in 2024. Let me know in the comments if you're going to join me, whether for just January or in general. Pay attention and watch out for the Use Your Shit 2024 stuff popping up on Patreon and Instagram in the next week or so. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, friends, peace!